Kate, hello.
Hey, Erin. Nice to meet you.
It's lovely to meet you. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, likewise.
Fellow Canadian.
Yes.
And you've made a longer journey here than I did. Big, long drive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike,
Yeah.
but
Worth it.
worth it. That's
Good.
right. Yeah.
So, Kate, to start off, just tell us, for those who don't know, a little bit about you and the work that you do, and kind of get us started on what we're going to jump off into today.
Yeah. So I'm the project manager for the Friends of Wabakimi's Wabakimi Boreal Caribou Citizen Monitoring Project. It's a little bit of a mouthful.
Do you guys have an acronym?
We do, but it's not a great acronym either.
Okay.
I often just refer to it as the Caribou Monitoring Project. It's
Great.
a little bit easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-year project. We're heading into the second year this year to monitor for boreal caribou, evidence of boreal caribou in the area around Wabakimi Provincial Park.
Amazing. That's so cool. And I also read that you're a canvas canoe builder.
I am, yeah. So for the last 14 years or so, I've been building wood canvas canoes. I've got a little company outside of Wakefield, Quebec, called Headwaters Canoes,
Yeah.
where we build and repair wood canvas canoes. My business partner there, Jamie, is holding down the fort right now, and we took over the business from a good friend, Hugh Stewart, who'd been working there and running the business for 35 years, and so we're lucky to be continuing the tradition.
Oh, that's so cool. So tell me where to start. How do you get into citizen science, caribou monitoring, working with Wabakimi? Where did it start for you?
I guess it started as being a paddler.
Yeah.
I think that's where many of us come from, is sort of a passion for being outside and paddling. I grew up paddling, went through camp and leading canoe trips and guiding trips, and then sort of moved out of guiding, and I wanted to do my own personal trips. That was more rewarding, and over time I did some other background science work, some field work, background in environmental studies, and so did lots of bird work, and that's where I did most of my field work over the years. And this opportunity came up. I paddled in Wabakimi a few times, and I love the area. I love to go back there. I have been lucky enough to see caribou a couple times while I was there.
Wow.
And I came across the job ad. That it was as simple as that. It was kind of a perfect combination for me. It was putting together canoe trips, giving people an opportunity to be invested in the place by doing something to kind of give back. We all go on canoe trips, and sometimes there's some other purpose for it, and often it's just for our own personal experience. And this felt like such a valuable initiative to allow people to do something for the conservation of the area. So it was pretty exciting, and my background in canoeing and putting canoe trips together and some science background sort of was a bit of a natural fit. So that was pretty exciting.
Amazing. So lots of different interests and knowledge base kind of converged into this worked out really well for this specific role.
It's sort of the dream.
Yeah.
It's kind of the dream in some ways, other than I don't get to paddle as much as I'd like to, but trying to work on that still. So
yeah, for
that's
sure.
okay.
And I know a little bit about the concept of citizen scientists, but for those who don't, share a little bit about that, because I think that's kind of what you're speaking to about that giving back and those pieces of it. So tell us about what does that mean to be a citizen scientist, and what are the different ways that kind of plays out in your project?
Yeah, so there's sort of a growing movement to include the average citizen in scientific work and scientific discovery and documenting observations of species occurrences. Lots of people would hear about iNaturalist, and that's it's a website, it's an app you can put on your phone, and it just allows you don't have to know what it is even. You can just have your phone and snap a photo of a bug, a plant, whatever it happens to be, and that goes into a much bigger database that then researchers can draw on to just gain knowledge about how the world is changing and the world around us. So it's a way that the whole idea of citizen science is a way that people, the average citizen, can contribute to these scientific endeavors. So for us, the Caribou Project, we want to engage paddlers in conservation of the Wabakimi area. So having people out there, we talk about it, we can tell you all about, why it's important to conserve the area and work on preserving the place for caribou and the importance of biodiversity. But when you're out there and people spend a week crawling around on the ground and bushwhacking and looking for caribou scat, all of a sudden when you see it, it's so much more meaningful. And that experience of being in the place where a cow caribou gave birth to her calf and seeing the evidence and knowing that that's what happened there, it just makes it so much more special. And so we hope that resonates with people and that can help kind of spread the word and spread the message about caribou conservation.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And tell me a little bit more about the actual project that you're working on then, the Caribou Conservation Initiative. So 2 or 3 years in. Just tell me more.
Sure. Yeah, it's a 3-year project. We're heading into the second year. So last year was kind of our test run. We had 3 trips that went out, and this year we'll have 8 trips going out.
Wow. Yeah.
Next year we'll have a similar number again. Each of the trips are going to different locations to survey for evidence of caribou. So what that really looks like is most of the time a group will spend 7 days, maybe 10 days, typically base camped in one location or maybe in a couple of different spots. And then every day they paddle out, spread out, and look for islands and peninsulas where caribou are typically going to choose to calve. So those are the calving areas because they're isolated spots. They're more protected and they're safer from predators in those spots. So the volunteers are headed out, do their surveys each day, come back, get to camp together. You get some of the canoe trip experience. You get this experience of really diving deeper into one location, which is something that people have commented on feels really special. Even though we're wilderness canoeists, most of the time you don't go bushwhacking around in the woods, right?
No, not a ton.
You go to your portage, you follow the trail, or maybe you bushwhack a trail if you need to, but most of the time you kind of have a destination, you know where you're going, and one person commented last year that it was really an amazing opportunity to see things that you might never have seen before and get to know one place. So it's a different experience than a traveling trip, but it's kind of got its own highlights that are pretty special too.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And what sort of, you said kind of evidence of caribou, what sort of data is being collected, I guess, on these trips?
So the evidence that we're looking for most often is scat or pellets. That's at a quarter of the sites that we visited last year.
Nice.
A quarter of the sites we had evidence of caribou. So about 21 sites of the 82 that we surveyed had evidence, and about 15 of them had scat at them. So it tells us a lot about the caribou as well. We can figure out their age and how recently they've been there by looking at the scat. So scat, antler sheds, which is pretty neat if you find one. We haven't found one on these surveys yet, but we'll keep looking for them. What's really cool about antler sheds is if you find one on a bedding area, that often indicates that it's a calving bed because the caribou, there's a hormonal change that happens after they calve, and that's what triggers them to lose the females lose their antlers. So they're the only deer species where the female and males both grow antlers, which
lots of people don't know. And that's so cool. It's so interesting.
It's very cool. And
the sheds,
the shed happens right after they've calved. So that location you can often kind of tie to the calving if you find the shed there.
Sheds.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow.
What else? We're looking for tracks, often on sandy beaches, just because it's really hard to find them in other places. So we'll see them in the sand or the mud. Actual caribou, if we're
Yeah.
so lucky to actually see caribou, that's pretty special. Game trails and foraging, we can't necessarily tie those to caribou specifically, but if we see those in conjunction with the bedding areas, then we'll make note of those things as well.
Yeah, and so from all this that you're collecting, what are you hoping to learn just as much as you can about the caribou? Are there any specific goals of the project?
Yeah, the goal is to kind of fill out the database about what areas of the Wabakimi area are really important habitat areas. So right now, there's lots of historic data. We know that there are caribou there, people see them, but there's not a lot of recent data that kind of points out which areas are most important. The reason that we want that, or want to know that, is because scientists have determined there's kind of a 35% disturbance threshold in their range areas, where if more than 35% of the range is disturbed, typically from logging, could be forest fire, but in Wabakimi area, it's most often logging is the disturbance. If there's a great deal of disturbance, then the caribou population isn't self-sustaining any longer. Okay. So over 35% disturbance means they really struggle to maintain their population. So in the areas where we're working, there is right now more than 35% disturbance. So they're not considered self-sustaining populations. And so we'd like to argue for greater protection, for more habitat, and the best way to do that would be to identify those really important places. So it allows us to say, these are the places that caribou are using now, these are the really important places. This would be really, really valuable and really helpful if we could protect these areas in some way.
So advocating for the conservation of their homes.
Yeah, exactly. And very specific places that we know are valuable places.
That would help, right? To be and have that direct evidence as opposed to, I'm sure, helps the argument, right? The more evidence you have to say that, the more you can really substantiate that advocacy. Cool.
Another cool thing is that caribou do return to the same calving areas year after year. So if we can identify calving beds, then of course that's a place where they're very vulnerable, but also protecting those areas would really add to the conservation effort. It does make a big difference.
How long is this? So I know this project is 3 years. Is this something that's gone on in the past? Is this the first time something like this is happening? Tell me just a bit about the history of this.
Yeah, it's the first project of this kind that we're aware of.
Amazing.
It's unique in that it's combining the citizen science piece. Yeah. It's pretty far out there. Wabakimi is pretty far out there, and it's a big investment from volunteers. It's all volunteer based. The surveyors are all volunteers, and so people put a lot of time into it. And so we're incredibly grateful to all of those volunteers. But we don't know that anyone else has kind of taken on something of this size before. We're fortunate to be funded through the Ontario government, through the Caribou Conservation Stewardship Program, which is a 5-year agreement between the Ontario government and the federal government to support caribou conservation in the province. So that's where it's coming from, is a bigger effort from the Ontario government to put some resources into caribou conservation. And we hope that we're not going to cover all of the territory that we could cover.
Yeah, of course.
3 years is not enough. The crown land surrounding Wabakimi is huge. And so, so we hope that we'll be able to continue beyond the 3 years. But of course, that depends on many, many things, and we'll see how that goes. But we hope.
Hope that it's going to sustain and keep building, or at least kind of carrying on. The more time you can spend looking at that, the more information you can gather.
The other piece is we're encouraging folks who are not on our trips to report their sightings through iNaturalist. And so there's a couple different places within iNaturalist. We have our own Friends of Wabakimi iNaturalist project, and there's also the NHIC it's Rare Species of Ontario project within iNaturalist is another good place to report caribou sightings. And that means that the sightings get into the provincial database.
Okay.
And so they can be, our data goes to that place eventually as well. And so we hope that other paddlers who are out, who aren't on our trips, we know our trips aren't going to work for everyone, or we don't have enough space for everyone, unfortunately. But if we can send people there to report more observations, then we can kind of fill out the database more and get more information.
Oh, cool. Good. And tell me, I heard you mention that you've had a couple encounters with caribou, woodland caribou?
Yeah, there were two of the teams last summer saw caribou. I was out last summer, but I didn't actually see those ones. But on another personal trip with my partner, we were very fortunate to have a great sighting of a big bull caribou swimming across the lake, quite a narrow spot in the lake in front of us. And then as we heard it crash up into the bush, and then a few minutes later, again, it came out of the bush even closer to us and swam back across the lake. So yeah, pretty spectacular, pretty amazing animal, and amazing to see them. They're out there. They're pretty elusive.
They are.
I've heard them described as the ghost of the forest.
Yeah.
So
children of the wind.
Yeah. I know we're lucky to see them when we see them. So that felt pretty special.
That sighting, sorry if you said it, but was that were you already involved in this project, or was that before that?
I was involved. That was last summer when I was involved in the project, but I had seen them before that as well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of taken on a new meaning now, and I think back to the couple times that I saw them in Wabakimi before, and those were, I saw cows and calves together, and I'm feeling pretty lucky to be out there and come across them.
Incredible. And what was it like hearing some of the, I can only imagine for the citizen scientists out there coming back from their days and seeing them. So you were out, you got to interact with them shortly after they'd had their sightings? Was that cool?
Oh, they were it was the highlight.
Yeah.
It's a highlight of the trip, the summer, the year, of their, just such a amazing experience for them to see them. And seeing them was pretty special, but even the volunteers coming back and saying, we found a bedding area, that idea of kind of picturing and imagining that a caribou probably this year gave birth to a calf in that spot, and now you're standing there looking around for caribou poop.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So just that experience, whether it's finding the evidence or seeing the caribou, was really sort of a way that people felt so much more connected with the landscape there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually just wrote an article for Paddle Portage last week, and not about caribou, but about winter camping in Quetico. And a section of the article, I talk about one of my favorite things in winter is tracks. And on that trip, for the first time, I was just following some moose tracks and found where it had just bed down for the night.
Cool.
And that's the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. And so, same kind of thing on lots of winter trips. I see a lot less wildlife in winter than summer, and yet sometimes I feel more connected to the wildlife because I follow their tracks and get to experience it in a different way. So it sounds kind of similar for the people
story,
working on these
right?
projects. Yeah,
you get to feel it's like you understand the whole story of what that animal's been doing.
Yeah.
And,
where sometimes with a sighting, always amazing, but oftentimes it's like you said, a shimmer, a
fleeting,
ghost.
yeah.
You see that, and it's there, and then they're gone. And so that's so cool to hear that that's something that you guys are doing, and that I agree, getting people out there to have that experience and be more connected, and hopefully then more invested in advocating for and protecting and being stewards of the land that we're on.
Yep.
So that's so cool. And what about, have you, outside of Wabakimi, any favorite spots?
Oh yeah, lots.
Favorite trips, yeah.
I mean, I've been just speaking of caribou, thinking about that. I've been incredibly fortunate to see caribou on the George River, as well as in the Yukon, on the Porcupine, Bell Rivers, and So those are some pretty spectacular highlights of my paddling experiences that I've been so fortunate to have. I was sort of born and raised paddler in Wabakimi area in Ontario. So that's the place that is, it's not exactly close to home, but it's my home place in terms of going there. I can pull off a trip there without too much thinking, and it always feels like going back to a familiar spot that I love so much. So yeah, it's pretty close to my heart.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so cool. And so Caribou, have you... Now I've lost my train of thought. I've got so many going. So you've lots of paddling, lots of experience, and so like you said, even before this project, you had some interactions with Caribou, and the difference. Tell us the difference between, because not everyone knows, between barren grounds caribou and woodland caribou. Yeah. And why this work? Because I think in my experience, I have a little bit of, I've been fortunate enough to cross paths with both as well, and people who aren't as familiar with it sometimes don't really, they think that, there's lots of caribou and they're in herds, and and the difference between why it's so important to be doing the work that you're doing specifically for the woodland caribou.
Yeah, so barrenland caribou, migratory caribou in the far north, people think of the images of, I know you've seen some of the huge herds of caribou. Even those caribou are at risk, and our numbers have declined dramatically in some places less so, but they're all across the circumpolar north, not just in Canada. Reindeer are the same species as the caribou we have. There's lots of subspecies. So the big difference is, there's a couple big differences. One, the woodland caribou, boreal woodland caribou, are not migratory, so they're not moving in the same way that the other further north caribou are from one place to another. They move short distances to find appropriate habitat for different parts of their season or life cycle, like calving, for example. But they really are, they've lost 40 to 50% of their habitat in Ontario since the late 1800s. And it's really shifted northwards with development, human encroachment. Of course, that's changed a lot in the last 120 years. And so they've lost that 40 to 50% of their habitat, and with that, they've lost 50% of their population. So it's about half of what it used to be. And today, the greatest threat is habitat disturbance mostly from logging, as I mentioned, mining, other road building, and with all of those things comes increased access by predators, wolves and bears. And another sort of interesting piece is that as the habitat changes, as forests regenerate, if there's logging that happens in an area, it takes a really long time before caribou will move back into that area, and we'll see that as viable habitat.
Interesting, yeah.
So they really need mature boreal forest. That takes a very long time to regenerate. Yeah. And what happens in the meantime is, as it regenerates, moose are attracted to that regenerating forest. They're much happier in regenerating forest. The moose attract predators, which are the same predators that prey upon caribou, and so there's much greater chance that they're going to run into each other. They're going to find the caribou as well. And then, of course, roads, cut lines are just little highways for the predators. Well. Yeah. So both of those things, it's both increased interaction with predators and just the habitat disturbance that we sort of have to find a way to limit or change if we're going to maintain that habitat for the woodland caribou in Ontario.
Because they're such an incredible species, and have had these different challenges that have put them at threat, and so it's incredible and so inspiring to hear you talk about. I'm so happy to hear that there's work being done by passionate people to advocate and try and protect them, and hopefully we can do what we can to
Yeah.
keep them around and,
Yeah.
and give them that protection that they deserve. And I'm not sure if you know the answer to this. Are there slightly different populations of woodland caribou? Is there from my knowledge, there's kind of Wabakimi, and they're a bit inland. There were some, and now that there's the Slate Islands caribou, which have dwindled and now come back a bit with Michipicoten. But
that's right.
Is that
so they make a distinction between the continuous population and the discontinuous population. So Wabakimi is kind of the southern edge of the continuous population of boreal woodland caribou. The Michipicoten Caribou Island, back and forth between them, they're part of the discontinuous population. Okay. I don't know if genetically if there's a difference there, but that's kind of the distinction in terms of looking at the way people look at the ranges.
Yep. So they probably just don't cross paths.
They don't
those
cross
two
paths. No, that's right.
Yeah, crossover. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. I have what's your favorite animal?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Good question, though. Good question. I don't know if I have an answer.
No? That's fair.
Although, I've learned so much more about caribou doing this job. I didn't immediately jump to say caribou, but they're pretty special, and I'm learning more and more about them. I'm a bird person, so I've probably got some bird favorites out there that are pretty special. And just to relate the two of them, I think a lot about how, and this is kind of a point that's out there, is that protecting caribou protects habitat. It protects, they're an umbrella species. So if you protect caribou effectively, you protect so many other boreal forest species. You protect the boreal forest.
Right.
So it means that tree harvesting, forestry operations have to happen at a sustainable level. It means that you're protecting habitat for 80 other species at risk, boreal songbirds, wolverines, all of those critters are impacted in the same way, and in slightly different ways too. But if you protect the habitat effectively for caribou, it means all of those things are kept in check as well.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Climate change, carbon sinks. The boreal forest is the biggest. Peatlands are such a huge carbon sink, and if they're not disturbed, we're not releasing that carbon too.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's not caribou, not an immediate caribou?
It's not an immediate caribou.
That's okay.
But
mine's caribou.
I
love them.
Nice. Yeah. Why?
So many reasons. I was fortunate enough on Lake Nipigon, the north end of Lake Nipigon, to come across, to just have this incredible interaction with a woodland caribou. And,
awesome.
And it just was magical, and I love that. And then the following year, this past summer, got to have my experience in the Barrens with the migration and seeing a lot of them, and I just fell in love with them. I think they're a little derpy.
Yeah.
And I relate. Yeah, they're a little goofy. You think they're like in photos and things. I always thought they were like kind of regal and majestic, and then you see them in person, and
they're a little cartoon character.
They're goofy, yeah. And I like that.
Yeah.
I just find them so charming.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have two final. First, I have a final question, and then I want to ask how people can get a hold of you, how people can be involved, support. We'll do that. But my question is, what's a fun caribou fact that lots of people don't know?
Let's see.
You've already shared some great ones.
Yeah. So caribou, well, there's also lots of great stuff about the lichen that they eat. So their primary food source is Cladonia lichens. And I learned recently that they can smell lichen through up to a meter of snow.
Wow.
Which is pretty amazing. You think about, I don't really know what lichen smells like, but they know.
Do they have a really strong sense of smell like bears in general, or specifically for lichen? Do you know?
I don't know that. That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure.
But yeah, that's impressive. Okay.
But in addition to eating lichen, I think that's fairly common. It's common knowledge that that's what their primary food source. I recently learned that they will also eat mushrooms.
Oh, they do.
So that was That was kind of cool.
Any specific mushrooms that you guys have found that they've?
I don't
or any
know.
that they
I
come
don't know
across?
about specifics, but
There's
yeah,
chanterelle.
there's maybe they've got a
I bet
preference.
they wouldn't say no to a nice morel.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd have some competition for a nice morel.
Yeah.
But,
That's
sure
interesting.
they'd
No, I
go
didn't
for
know
it.
that about caribou.
Yeah.
That's cool. Great. So yeah, how do people, what are ways people can support this? What are ways people could get involved, show support, learn more?
Yeah. So for this summer, we have filled most of our volunteer spots.
Yep.
We may have a few spots that come up. So if folks are interested, I would encourage them to get in touch with me, which you can do through the Friends of Wabakimi website. It's wabakimi.org.
Okay.
And there's links there to the project and ways to get in touch with me through that. There's a place to send in an application. We will have all of our trips next year. So if it's on your radar as something you're interested in, January is the time probably December is the time to be thinking about it. Applications open in January.
Yeah.
And in order to stay on top of all that information, if you sign up for the Friends of Wabakimi newsletter on our website, you'll get all the news about applications and all that as it comes up. We have little updates that go out in our newsletter again. So if you become a Friends of Wabakimi member too, there's all sorts of information that goes out about what's going on, what we're doing, other projects FOW is working on as well.
Great. So that's we'll put some links to that too. And
Awesome.
Encourage people,
thank you.
to get involved and check it out. Check out the newsletter and go on one of the trips. Be a citizen scientist. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and get in touch if anyone wants to report their own sightings. We're happy to help you do that. Or if you're not used to using iNaturalist, we can help you figure out how to use that or how to have it work while you're on a canoe trip too. All that stuff is really valuable, and we'd love to hear about it.
My historic sighting?
You sure can.
Okay. I
Yep.
haven't done
So
that
if you
yet.
need to have the location and be
it.
able to put in your photo or whatever, but you can. Doesn't need to be current or
Get you to
happening
walk
in
me
the
through
moment.
that
When
we're
that'd be
off
awesome.
air.
That'd
Cool.
be awesome.
Good. Well, this has been so much fun. Such cool work. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
Talk to me, and share this amazing work that you're doing with everyone. And keep it up.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for spreading the word. It's really, really important, and we want everyone to know what's going on and be able to support the conservation efforts. So
awesome.
thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.